Hello and welcome. This is Bree Stedman, host of Own Your BS, the podcast, where your negative head talk and the bullshit stories you tell yourself become irrelevant, and solution focus creates a path of emotional confidence, clarity, and control. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Own Your BS, the podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about why. Why does this always happen to me? Why do they always do that? Why can't I just let it go? Essentially, we're going to be talking about blame, responsibility, victim, and victor. And this is a really important thing for you to become mindful of, because while ever we stay stuck in a space where we feel powerless to choose, powerless to grow, or powerless to change, we prevent ourselves from moving forward towards the life that we want to be experiencing for ourselves. This, in fact, is one of the very first things that I teach in the Own Your BS program, because until you become aware of the nature of your thinking, you cannot possibly grow forward. You cannot see the choices that are available to you while ever you are stuck seeing only the situation that you're experiencing in the here and now. So let's talk about why, and why the word why is so destructive. Why is the ultimate victim word, and many of you might find that you use it a lot, that you use it to try and explore more details about what's going on in your life. Now, the problem with the word why is it has no real proactive answer. It instead fuels the question or story with current or past life experiences and knowledge to further prove why you feel what you feel and think what you think. So, for example, if you use a word, a sentence like, why does this always happen to me? Your unconscious mind recalls all of the times in your life when this similar circumstance that you're experiencing right now has happened to you in the past, to prove to you that it's happening for you now because it's happened in the past. And because you're asking that question, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this always happen to me? Your brain, which is there only to serve your thought and prove you right, is going to provide you with examples of that. If you say things like, why don't they listen to me? If you're a mum, and as mums we've all said this, why don't you listen to me? Why don't you just do as you're told? Your brain unconsciously says, this is why they don't listen to you. And if you've got negative thoughts about yourself, if you feel negatively about your ability to mother, then those unconscious thoughts will sound a little bit like, because you're not a good enough mum, because they don't respect you, because they're spoiled brats, or whatever it might be. Why don't they listen to me? Why don't they do as they're told? It's not a thought that leaves you feeling empowered, because you're also putting more power and emphasis on that other person's actions as opposed to what you can do in the situation when you don't feel listened to or heard. Essentially, why is going to keep you stuck in reminiscing or looking for details. And if we get really real, why things have happened to you in the past, why things are happening to you right now, are really quite irrelevant. What's most important for you right now is either enjoying the present moment or giving yourself the ability to move forward, to step forward with a sense of decisiveness, of purpose, some level of confidence. So, what I encourage you to do is start identifying all of the times in your life when you buy into the why. Knowing that why is ultimately putting you into a space of blame. Now, before I move into what you can do with the why, I want to explore this concept really, really quickly. Because while ever you live in that space of blame or victimhood, you are taking away your power. You are giving your power to someone or something else, which essentially means you're just sitting in the car of your life, letting someone else direct you, cruising along hoping that life gets good. And let's be real, nothing changes until something changes. So how can you identify if you are in a state of blame? Firstly, pay attention to how often you ask questions like, why did this happen? Why don't they do this? Why can't I let it go? If you are exploring the why, you are stuck in a state of blame. If you are prone to lack thinking, lack of opportunities, lack of resources, lack of friendships, lack of whatever, then again, you are falling prone to victim mentality, because there is abundance all around you. There is always something more available to you. It's purely dependent on the way that you see your life situations. So if you identify that you have negative beliefs around your money, your relationships, or the opportunities that are available to you, then start exploring what's really going on there. Now, the next thing that I really just quite quickly want to touch base with is a concept called secondary gain. Now, secondary gain is the fear to get out of your own way, the fear to release these issues in your life because you fear who you will become when you don't have the problem. You fear how you're going to feel loved or supported or gain a level of attention, because without the problem, you don't know who you're going to be. Again, this is a really big concept to get. And it's a big confrontation to realize if you do recognize that you are where you are because you don't want to change. If you identify that you are in a space of feeling secondary gain, of wanting to hang on to the problem because you know that by having it, you're going to be able to get some level of attention from someone else, I encourage you to really consider, is it serving you long term? Are you truly happy to be cycling over and over again with the same issue surfacing, or are you finally ready to step up and get out of that space? Now, if the answer is a resounding yes, then this is what I encourage you to do. Every single time you go to complain, whinge, or whine about your life, every time you start talking about the stories and the circumstances that bring you down, stop and ask yourself this one question. What is the purpose of this? Is the purpose of this to help myself? Is the purpose to get advice and encouragement from other people? Or am I just looking for attention? Am I just looking for drama? Am I just looking for an opportunity to stay in my circumstances? And then ultimately, choose what feels right for you. Chances are you're listening to Own Your BS, the podcast, because you don't want to stay stuck in story. So, what is the purpose of this? If you ask yourself this one question, every single time you start thinking negatively or you start speaking negatively to others, you will quickly give yourself the reality check of whether or not this is serving me. And then you can choose wisely. What could you discuss instead? How could you phrase where you're at in a way that encourages advice that lifts you? The next bit of advice that I'd like to share with you is to start asking more what questions. What is the purpose of this is just one great question. Another really fantastic question that you can ask yourself, particularly when you find yourself caught up in the why of what is happening in your life, is what am I going to do? What can I do right here, right now, that makes me feel good? What can I do about this situation to help me create change? What can I do to communicate my message better? If your children or your spouse or your partner or someone at work is not listening to you and you hear yourself saying, why don't they listen to me? What can you do to communicate yourself more clearly? Or how can you learn so that this situation does not continue to change? So what questions and how questions give you the ability to create change? And they drive a sense of solution and action. I was saying only just this weekend that the most important step following awareness of what your negative habits are is to act. Because you can think about everything that you want to change until you're blue in the face. You can think about how you can empower yourself. You can think about what you might do one day. But nothing will change until you act, until you put a plan in place that allows you to move forward. And the plan in place, it doesn't even need to be that complicated. This is why I love that question. What am I going to do right here, right now? If you just keep bringing your focus back to that one decision that you have to make in this moment, and you then follow through with the action of that decision, you will start to build momentum in your life that takes you away from blame and victimhood, and it puts you into a space of ownership and power. Ultimately, it gives you the ability to live life according to your responsibility. And this is a really nifty little thing that I just wanted to share with you super quick. Over the weekend, I was watching a clip on Facebook, and it was about a guy he was a soldier, and he was talking about the responsibility that soldiers have and the responsibility that we as humans have to live our best lives possible. And the term responsibility in itself can be one that triggers a sense of blame or victim, because sometimes to act with responsibility is a scary thing. It requires us to be courageous sometimes, to step up out of the comfort zone. And when he started talking about responsibility, he broke it down into two words. The act of responsibility is to respond within your ability. Response ability makes up responsibility. Now, what does that mean? Firstly, recognize what your abilities are in the moment when you need to step up. What are you physically able to do in that moment that requires action? And then respond according to your abilities. This means that every moment in your life, you are not trying to be someone that you're not. You're not trying to act like someone else expects you to act. You are only ever responding according to your ability. And if you were to do this in accordance with your head talk, if you were able to recognize when you go into a state of blame, when you start exploring the why, and you stopped and you asked yourself, what can I do about this right now? What are my abilities allowing me to do about this situation right now? And how am I going to respond in alignment with these abilities? Every single time you do this, you are bringing back your sense of personal power. And with your sense of personal power being the focus, you will develop emotional control. You will develop the confidence within you to know that regardless of the thoughts you have, regardless of the circumstances and the situations that you find yourself in, you are always able to respond within your abilities. And that ultimately is owning your BS, because that is living your life according to you. Have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 5 of Own Your BS, and I look forward to connecting with you again next week.